And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
What's going on, guys? It's Level 1 Woke Podcast, back with another episode. We are going to touch the subject of President Kennedy and his assassination, mostly talking about his assassination, a little bit about the Warren Commission and Oswald.
Oswald, not Oswald.
Oswald.
Yeah,
But,
that's
yeah.
a little inside thing. Yeah. I think we're gonna kind of mostly talk about his assassination and the events that happened on that day.
And the fucking CIA and the fucking FBI and the Dallas police.
For sure.
They were all some crooked fucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of ass backward stuff to
Yeah,
this.
I mean, I don't know a lot of info about it, just from probably a little, much as everybody else knows, or maybe a little bit more than everybody else knows. But if I do, it's not a lot. So Brandon's the self-proclaimed expert. So
No.
he's the expert, guys.
No.
He said he's an expert. So
No,
yeah,
not
listen.
not an expert. Just have known about this and looked at some stuff, looked at some evidence here.
But there was definitely some shady shit going on, and we're getting closer to the release of the JFK documents and files soon. They were pushed back a few more years.
Yeah, I think now that George Bush Sr. has passed away, we're going to get more stuff because I believe his name is all over that shit.
He might have been on the hit squad, one of the hit
He
squads.
was on the hit squad, for sure.
He might have coordinated one of the hit squads.
Yeah, and the events of this day have, kind of sparked the whole term conspiracy theory just because of all the evidence that is, I guess you could say, there and not there, and how the government put together their own task force basically to figure out what happened on that day, which was called the Warren Commission, and it was established 2 days after his death by Lyndon B. Johnson, who was sworn into presidency right after he was assassinated.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, he was assassinated on 1963, November 22nd?
November 22nd, yep.
12,
1963.
approximately like 12:30 p.m. So
12:30.
it was like midday.
Pronounced dead at 1 p.m. that day, but he was dead at 12:30.
He was dead when those shots rattled their car, I would say, because I don't believe in the whole single shot magic bullet theory or the whole only 3 shots being fired, which was information release that from the Warren Commission that they felt was their overall story, that they felt somehow solidified to tell this story to us. But it was, I think, when Lee Harvey Oswald was first arrested, I believe it was just for the death of Officer Tippit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he was later charged with this assassination for Kennedy.
Yeah, he's the main figure of the assassination. There's some people believe that there was more shooters involved, things like that, but the Warren Commission puts it solely on him. But there's some facts that we're going to get into about that doesn't make sense that it was just Oswald.
Yeah, so he was assassinated 63, November 22nd during the day. He was also he was in a motorcade of a few how many presidential limousines? 3 or 4?
Yeah, there was like
with
3 or 4. They were in
a
Dallas.
bunch of motor bike cops.
Yeah,
escorting
a
them,
bunch of security
bunch
and
of
things like that.
CIA,
They were in Dallas to for like campaigning, probably for his next term.
which didn't make no sense because his vice president was from Dallas, or was from Texas, I believe for sure.
Mhm.
He was from Texas. I don't know if it was Dallas, but they didn't need Texas support. They should have had it already just from the vice president.
Yeah.
So like, whoever put him in Dallas that day probably definitely had something to do with his assassination.
Yeah. Well,
That's some high up shit. That's
here's
some
the
high
thing
up calls
is-
right there.
Allegedly, a lot of this stuff is allegedly, but there was a few people who told him to stay away from Dallas and things like that warned him not to go there, but he had to show support and stuff while he was there. So yeah, November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas.
JFK's head exploded, literally. That shit didn't even that shit looked like fucking Sylvester Stallone's Rambo movie and shit. Like gory as fuck, like directed, like his shit just exploded. Like, you know how many times I've watched First 48 and seen people shot in the head? I've never seen a head explode like that from a bullet.
You can watch the film. It's all over there. It's supposedly not the original film, but it's called the Zapruder film.
If he shot from behind, from the right upper 6 floors up from his right behind, that bullet should have came out of the left side of his face. They try to say it came back out the right side of his face, like it did a U-turn inside of his head and then came back out. Bullet was never found, like allegedly.
So if you haven't seen the video footage, which it's a pretty popular video, you've probably just seen it on History Channel and stuff. Their motorcade is coming through Daly Plaza. They take like a little left turn and kind of go forward. And as they're going, you have people lined down the street, watching the president come down the road.
But before they got to that turn, you can look this up on the footage. It was almost planned, because like orchestrated to the T. Because if you look at it, before they hit that turn, there's people in the crowds 6-7 rows deep, like just packed. And then as soon as they hit that turn and start going down Elm Street, which we all know Freddy Krueger's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
But so they go down Elm Street, and that's when it happens. But as soon as they turn down Elm Street, the roads are almost clear. There's not too many people on the other
you can
side.
definitely see. You can even in the little grassy part across the street in the Zapruder film, people are just kind of staggered, and you can see it kind of slowly dwindle. There's only like a couple people. Yeah. You look back
There's
further
probably
back.
No more than 10 people on that side.
Yeah, if you look in the very beginning of the footage, you can see it's literally shoulder to shoulder people walking there, and
rows deep behind them.
Yeah, and if you look this place up on, say, like even Google Maps, you can see how much more sidewalk there is to.
And they were going through a park area, so naturally you would think more people would be in that walking area, that park area,
yeah,
stuff like that. But
for sure,
something that always was always in the back of my mind. Like, I couldn't believe the Warren Commission, just because the single bullet theory. We know that the Protruder film has been manipulated. There's people that did the process and figured out somehow that this film has been slowed down in portions and blown up or shrunk in other portions.
Yeah, frames missing and things like that.
Definitely, there's 2 or 3 frames missing. Around the 300
313, I think there's something missing there. And we watched a couple different ones just on like YouTube, because where else are you gonna watch that shit?
Yeah.
And the couple of videos we watched were there's some things that were different in just even those.
Yeah.
Supposedly untouched video, unedited,
Zapruder. But who knows about this fucking Zapruder guy anyways?
Right.
So
I don't think he even came forward with that footage until quite a bit after the whole thing happened.
Well, there's a lady that filed a lawsuit in 2015 that she submitted her footage from the other side towards where the grassy knoll was. Right. And she noticed that her footage was never published or used, so she filed a lawsuit in 2015 to get it back. or
She ain't getting
she
that
wants
shit
like
back.
10 million or
She got a good
$10 million lawsuit or something like that.
I think they'd pay her the 10 million, especially if there's some incriminating evidence that points to it not being Oswald. She'll never see that footage ever again.
For sure. But I mean, that's what happens when you deal with a fucking crooked ass government. So
For sure.
they're all fucking crooks. People think they do good things. They don't do good things. They do more bad than they do good.
Well, this is kind of, one of the places, one of the events where you can really see that they fucked shit up in this and did a lot of, cover ups and things like that. Just because, let's get back to the shooting, like where supposedly Oswald was in the Texas school book depository, which was right up the road from it. It was in the 6th floor, and this man got allegedly 3 shots off in 7 seconds with an old Italian bolt action rifle.
3 successful shots. Well, 2 anyways.
They
And
say
one they couldn't
one
find.
one supposedly missed, hit the concrete, bounced off, and hit someone on the overpass just after where he gets shot. And the other
magic bullet entered Kennedy.
Right, the first bullet hit the concrete, supposedly missed. Second bullet hit Kennedy in the neck, went through Kennedy.
You seen the autopsy pictures. It hit him in the back.
Yeah.
It didn't hit him in the neck. It showed a shot lower right below like his shoulder level in the back, and somehow
came out of his neck.
His forward trajectory, it came right out the middle of his neck.
Right.
Even if it was shot from behind you up, how would it come out straight? And even if it did, it hit Governor Colony in his shoulder, went through his shoulder, hit his hand, went through his hand and hit his thigh or some shit like that. It left 7 wounds.
It hit his wrist, shattered his wrist.
Yeah, 2 broken bones, 7 wounds, and they found this bullet on the governor's gurney in the hospital in prestige condition. Perfect. Not a piece missing off of it. But how you gonna explain Governor Colony had bullet fragments that were removed from him? So how you got a perfect bullet, but then you got fragments in you?
How do you have a perfect bullet?
So just from the bullets alone, that Warren Commission and everything that happened that day don't have.
Well, just this bullet alone.
Just from bullets alone.
Speaking
of like bullets alone.
If this one bullet did truly go through both of them, it would have had to gone through 15 layers of clothing, 7 layers of skin, 15 inches of body tissue, through a necktie, moved 4 inches of Connolly's rib, and ended up in his. But shattered in his wrist bone, but somehow this bullet is in perfect condition.
And not only that, when it exited Kennedy and before it hit the governor, it was estimated that the bullet had to take a break in midair for 1.3 seconds for it to do everything that the Warren Commission said that it done.
Right.
It was proven that this bullet had to pause in midair for a second before it hit the governor.
I believe it's
1.3 seconds.
The trajectory was when it went left, it would have had to stop.
And came back right.
Hung a right,
and
then went straight and down, just for that to make sense. So yeah, I don't believe there is only.
And even if the headshot came from the 6th floor,
3 bullets.
It's not gonna exit the right side of your face. It's gonna exit the left side.
Okay, so yeah, after that,
being shot down this way, it's gonna come out this
through
way.
your face.
Even if you're already leaning or your back choking, it's not going to come back
He was semi-leaning too. So after that second bullet hit him through the neck, he immediately puts his hands up to his neck like this, maybe leaning forward a little bit. If he was he was pretty. If you look at the video, he was sitting pretty straight up, kind of like this. So if that bullet came from the 6th floor at an angle, like you said, it should have came through his face.
Watch the video, because clearly the first thing you see happen is his front of his head explode.
Right.
That's it. It just exploded. It almost looked like it came from the front, which the grassy knoll, there were police officers that ran towards the grassy knoll when the shots were fired.
Yep.
One of them testified that he ran around the opposite side of the gate where the grassy knoll was, and he encountered a gentleman that showed him what he thought were CIA credentials, and the gentleman just ran off, he said.
There's a bunch of conflicting things, especially people seeing. There's one. I forgot her
The
name.
double shooter in the window.
The double.
of the,
Well, the double shooter in
there
the
was
window.
two shooters scenes in the Texas school book depository.
Yeah.
One was claimed to be a bald black male,
Mm-hmm.
which they thought might have been a Cuban guy, because maybe they're trying to put some communists in.
Yeah,
it
there was
somehow.
some
they wanted
animosity
to
between
attack Cuba
Cuba
at that
and
time,
America
yeah.
at that time.
The CIA
So-
wanted to attack Cuba at that time for sure.
Yep.
Because they got the intelligence that CIA had, Cuba had a bunch of Russian nuclear missiles over there, which they did.
And they were, basically hiding that from us. There's the two shooters along the fence. There's another woman who has some footage. I forgot her name.
So all you flat earthers, there goes proof right there. That's how they found out about the missiles in Cuba back then, were satellite images, not cameras from balloons.
Fucking radio towers.
Yeah.
I don't know how a radio tower would pick that up.
But okay, so
That's another. That's another day
we're waiting for you, buddy. He's coming.
for sure.
That topic is coming. But yeah, there was a bunch of conflicting stories. There was two shooters from the 6th floor, one on each end of the building. There was also, and not only that, I mean, if you look at Lee Harvey, what he did that day, as far as he woke up late for work, it's documented, police conversation with his wife. He woke up late for work. He woke up late to the point that he stormed out of the house, forgot his money, forgot his cash. This is documented.
His wedding ring, everything.
So he forgot everything. He just ran. But supposedly, he walked out with a package. He had the package, though. There was a package. He said it was curtain rods that he was delivering. And even somebody verified the story that dropped him off at work, that he got out with his current rods and he held it under his arm. And they were basically saying it was too short. It was only like 1.5 feet long, that it was too short to be a rifle. So it must have been, I don't know what it was or what they're saying it was, but they're saying it was too short. They couldn't link the rifle to him anyways that killed the president. They could not link it to Oswald.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is he worked at the school book depository. Lee Harvey Oswald did. But there's some things about Lee Harvey Oswald that makes me think, we were talking about this earlier, that he was set up by the CIA to be a patsy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I believe
For sure.
I believe he was in the military and got honorably discharged, and later it was moved to it's not dishonorably.
No, what happened was he was honorably discharged, and within a week from being honorably discharged, he went to the Soviet Union. He deferred, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
The story is he deferred to Soviet Union. He went over there and got a visa. That was within a week. Within a week of being dishonorably discharged, he said he went over there with $1,500, which is equivalent to $10,200 today. He went over there with that money that he supposedly saved up from his Marine Corps money, because he was in the Army or whatever for a while, which in the Army he did achieve a sharpshooter status, and later on his score fell a little bit to marksman, but he was definitely a marksman shooter at the time of Kennedy's assassination. But yeah, he deferred to Russia as soon as he was honorably discharged, which is very hard to get. We don't even know how he got honorably discharged, which the CIA might have showed interest in him.
That's a pretty hard thing to get.
Yeah, the CIA probably showed interest in him. They had a lot of programs going on at that time.
Probably took him to another program, and
he deferred to the Soviets, and as soon as he did that, they switched his status to dishonorably discharged. Or it might not have been until the president was assassinated that his status was switched.
If they chose him strictly for this, maybe it was a long play. It was, make him look bad.
I mean, there is one link with him and the CIA. So there's definitely one link that put him and the CIA working out of the same building at one point in time.
Yeah, the thing is that doesn't make sense is, well, what do you think? Do you think he was playing both sides?
So, I don't know. It's just weird because the dude looked older than 24.
Yeah.
and he supposedly deferred to the Soviet when he was 20 years old. Like, dude's young as fuck. He joined the army or the Navy or Marines at 17, and he reached like top ranking. He was a private, and he had like secret clearance and like top secret clearance and shit in the army. Like, the dude, he was an intelligent dude. If you ever heard him speak, like, dude was very intelligent. And he spoke, like, about, communists and socialism and shit like that. But he was an intelligent dude, and 20 years old, he deferred to the Soviet. Like, this guy's young doing shit like that. And
met his wife there and then ended up moving back to Texas.
Yeah, met his wife there. Supposedly he went to the U.S. Embassy over there in Moscow or wherever. He went to the U.S. Embassy and tried to denounce his U.S. citizenship. They looked at him like he was crazy, and then he came back to America. I don't believe none of that shit. That's like official document from the Warren Commission, but I don't believe none
What
of that
about
shit.
him being seen in South America at a Russian embassy? Trying to get a...
Oh, no, he was seen in Mexico. In a Russian embassy, and then
supposedly,
I think the next day later it was a Cuban embassy or something. That's when
I think it was South America. I don't know if it was Cuban.
But he was definitely trying to get like some, because they had that what the hell was it? It was some program. So Oswald, here it goes. Oswald went to Mexico September 29th, 1963, and planned to travel to Cuba via Mexico, but returned to Dallas in October 63. And the days before Kennedy's arrival. Yeah, so that was like a few days before Kennedy's arrival, and he came back.
Yeah, so supposedly he was meeting with a KGB agent there.
In Mexico?
In Mexico, because this place was supposedly...
I think that's CIA trying to do false information.
It could be.
He was with CIA because when he was in New Orleans, he worked out of the same office as a CIA agent. Like...
Yeah.
That was basically like probably he was probably contracted by the CIA under the table, and they get a lot of people. Look at Frank Olson. He was started in the army and then contracted under the CIA. They get a lot of people like that.
They promise you all this stuff and then end up fucking you in the end. They may be like, hey, we're gonna pull you out of just being an army ranger, and we need you for this, this program, this secret program that we're working on. And then
so in September of 63 he was in Mexico. In August of 63 he was in New Orleans, and he was recorded giving out Fair Play for Cuba pamphlets, which were pro Fidel Castro pamphlets, trying to recruit people, communists.
He was a Soviet sympathizer.
But the office he worked out of in New Orleans, in that office he worked under a CIA agent in that office. In New Orleans. Whether he didn't know he was a CIA agent, which I'm pretty sure he did, because they were looking up the way he contacted and the calls that he were making, and he was calling like top-notch people and shit. Like,
that's what I'm saying. I think they pulled him out of the army for this.
Early, yeah.
Promised him like, hey, we got this secret program for you to that we want you in. Just sit tight, move to Texas. It'll all play out. We'll tell you what you need to do, and used him as a patsy. Because they needed someone to take the fall for this. And why,
Yeah, but if that's the case, if you're saying they pulled him out and made him a patsy at that time, that means Kennedy's death had to be planned before he even took office.
I only say that. That's just my opinion. I only say that because they're always doing these long plays, man.
So at what point do you think he became a patsy then? Couldn't have been the day that it happened. Was it a week before it happened?
I think he's like, look, this kid's pretty good at shooting. He's young. He might have his personality. We don't really know his personality. He may have been a very impressionable young man, and they're like, look, we can use this to just basically groom him to look like this would be the perfect person who would assassinate him. Maybe move him to Russia and make him do this stuff.
Long? So then. You're saying that 20 years, that's 4 years. That was even before Kennedy was president, that they were grooming him to kill Kennedy?
Listen, in the 1950s and 60s, it was a different time, man. People in their 20s were getting married. They were buying homes. They were working.
That's true,
it's nothing like today's.
But what I'm saying is you're grooming him to kill a president that hasn't taken office yet. If Senna,
maybe. Okay.
well, he definitely had some special training because that's how he got his wife. When he went to Russia, his wife said that he spoke perfect Russian, like better than some Russian citizens that grew up there. Like he spoke perfect Russian, and so there was training. He had certain, and actually, the CIA has a defer agent. What's it called? Agent defer program. Like if agents I guess defer and go somewhere else or whatever. They have language. They have like different languages. Like,
but who's to say that he was the only one? He could have just been one out of hundreds of these guys in the army and stuff that they pulled and
so
trained.
You're just saying that you're saying they just picked him.
I'm not saying.
I'm saying at what point. I'm trying to put a time frame to it. At what point do you think they said, "All right, you're going to be the one that we're going to put on the Kennedy"? So all right. So if this is this very second, Kennedy's going down, he gets shot right now. The time he gets shot, do you believe right now when his head's getting blown off do you believe that they already going to point the fingers at Oswald?
For sure. I think it was planned even maybe months before this took place. This was all set up.
All right, so that's how far I'm trying to get back on the time
frame.
Yeah,
months. I mean, just the Kennedy thing they probably had planning for months. I think.
Okay. So at least for months they planned on putting this off on Oswald.
I mean, at the most, yeah, or the least months.
At the least months. So the whole time that he's going to New Orleans, which he was originally from, was New Orleans, where he was born, and going back to Mexico, trying to get to Cuba via Mexico. Probably
Allegedly,
try to show up at a Cuba embassy or something. Like this guy got a thing for showing up.
Who's
at
to
embassies.
say that they didn't tell him to go and do these things, hand out pamphlets, go to the embassy here,
that was
go
one
talk
of
to
the
these
theories
people,
when they were doing the pro Castro. One of the theories were that they were trying to gather intel on people. They were really working for anti-Castro, but wanted to gather intel on pro-Castros, and that's why he was part of that event.
So I'm saying, go out.
I think dude was a patriot at heart. He joined the army at 17, dropped out of school, joined the army at 17. I think he was a patriot at heart. Became very good at what he did. He got a 212 fucking sharpshooter score.
For sure, that's what I'm saying.
And the dude had top clearance. Look it up. He had top security clearance. He became a private. That's not easy shit to do within 3 years. Because by the time he was honorably discharged, he was 20 when he went to Russia.
That's 4 years to mold him.
17 to 20.
3 years,
yeah. And to become a private within that time and fucking sharpshooter.
Yeah. Okay, so
marksmanship.
20 to 24. That's
Dude
4
was
years
an animal.
to do all this.
He might have been older than that too. He looked older. He looked older than 24 to me when he died.
Oh, life was rougher back then.
I mean, possibly that could be.
So I'm saying you had to grow up quicker. Like I'm saying, guys in their 20s and stuff, or right out of high school, they were buying homes. They were working in factories.
That's because they weren't paying as much taxes as we're paying now. They had extra money to do that shit.
Yeah, I mean that was.
They could be a fucking cart boy at a grocery store and still have their own place.
That was the American dream, really, right? So maybe that's what he was doing. He said, not obviously not so much a dream, but I really think that they were like, yeah, we're working on something for you. Just look, do these couple of things for us, ruffle some feathers, do these kind of obscure things for us, and we'll take care of you. And then just ended up putting him in the right place at the right time to use him as a patsy. But listen, because
it's not even that. To go back to the time frame. Oswald was employed at that Texas school depository 6 weeks before the shooting is when he started his employment there.
That's what I'm
6
saying.
weeks before
putting him in the right place
and
at the right
he
time.
He started at a minimum wage job, which was $1.25 an hour.
Okay.
And he had more money than that. I mean, even the amount of money that he reported, his pocket money that was left. His pocket money that was left on the dresser with his wedding ring was $175, which is like almost $2,000 nowadays or whatever. Like this dude just had $2,000 just sitting there, pocket money that he walked around with and left.
Okay, and where would he be getting money like that from?
Exactly, somewhere. I believe he was being orchestrated and coerced by the CIA for sure.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting. That's what makes the most sense to me.
We'll find out when those documents are released, and we'll get a lot more information. They're coming soon.
Yeah.
What Trump pushing back to 2020 or something?
Yeah, I think it's 2020, 21. But now that George Bush Sr.'s passed away, I think it's going to be, I think it might be a little sooner. I don't know if they can.
I think they definitely won't get pushed back anymore.
No, I don't think they'll get pushed back anymore. But George Bush Sr. is the one who put that law into place, in 1992 that says they would not be released for another 25 years.
I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit that's surrounding this case anyways, just the evidence that's involved.
Oh, you could talk about just the limousine. You could talk about just the window that he allegedly sat at. You could talk about so many things,
like
that
just this suspiciousness of everything. Like
that's what I'm saying.
There was a bullet hole found in the car and the window seal of the convertible, right dead in the middle. There's a bullet hole found there. There was a bullet that hit a curb, that hit a piece of a gutter, and the piece of a gutter flew up and hit a bystander. James Teague, I believe his name was. He received a minor facial injury from that, and all these incidents of these bullets flying everywhere and hitting everywhere else and ricochets. These were all dismissed by Warren Commission, and they came to the conclusion, and they produced it and put it forward to us as evidence that only 3 shots were fired. And we know 2 of them hit the people in the car. So you got 1 extra bullet going this way, going that way?
I think people have tried to prove and take that shot, same angle and everything.
Yeah, it's been reenacted, recreated,
and it's damn near impossible.
A few times, yeah.
Even by the best people who marksmen and
to
things
get the
today.
angle of him leaning and the way it hit him. And not only that, when his first impact, he goes backwards, like he was hit from the front. To me, that's how it looks, like he was hit from the front.
Yeah, people say that there was even someone on that overpass right there.
Well, I think there was witnesses. There was witnesses on that overpass. I heard about like some witnesses being around that overpass. I'm not sure how true that was.
Well,
but
who knows how true a lot of this stuff really is, but
yeah, if you don't believe the Warren Commission, then like he's saying, how the fuck are you gonna believe half this other shit?
Yeah.
So.
Well, if this was set up by the CIA, they're the one who investigated it, so I can't really believe a whole hell lot of that shit.
Yeah, they had a hand in investigating it. First of all, the investigation
they had the only hand in investigating that.
The investigation shouldn't have went to Mr. Warren. It should have went to Robert Kennedy, because he was acting Secretary of State at the time for his brother.
Yep.
So he should have from the beginning, off rip, he should have had the case. And somehow, your boy Johnson. He tried to say he formed the commission against his will, that he didn't want to, but he formed the Warren Commission, and it was made up of high top executive investigators or directors, and one of them being Alan Dulles from the CIA, that actually was director of the CIA when the MKUltra mind control programs were started in '53.
Was starting, yeah.
And he was the director at that time. So just to show you, this dude's already he's a crooked fuck.
Okay, so even from the shooting, there's shit that doesn't make sense, to them even going to Parkland Memorial Hospital right after they drove right to the hospital after the shots were fired.
90% of the witness testimony does not add up to Lee Harvey doing the shooting. 90% of it.
Right.
The only thing that does add up is, oh, he was in Mexico. Oh, he was in Cuba. He deferred to Russia. That's the only thing that adds up. That's what they put us out there. That was his background that they made public for America. That's his story they wanted us to know. That's not his real story, but that's what they wanted us to know about him.
Right. Yeah, but I mean,
so they're already putting pre-suggestions in your mind.
Into your mind
before they even released they're presuming him guilty in your mind. They're making him to perceive guilty to you in your mind before. And this media ran over and over for the whole 6 months that they were doing this Warren report. So by the time they released it, nobody questioned whether he was guilty. They had already been pounding it in him for 6 months.
Right.
Which might have been fucking MKUltra propaganda with the TVs and all that. And
you heard
wild.
So after they, not just on, like I was saying, the shooting was weird. There's a lot of things that didn't really make sense with that. They get to Parkland Memorial Hospital, and shit gets weird there too. The when they get there, they were gonna perform an autopsy, and the doctor who was working there, who was gonna perform the autopsy, he was supposedly blocked by JFK Secret Service. Said, "You're not touching anything. We're taking him to Bethesda Naval Hospital. You're not touching shit." And they had these back and forths and things like that. So why wouldn't they let him perform the autopsy there?
See, but that's just like anything in this case. Like anything in this case, how true do you think that story is? Because I heard the evidence it's not really conflicting, but I know for sure there wasn't an autopsy done there.
No.
And I know for sure guns were drawn by the CIA to get that body out of there, from the doctors, because the doctors felt once the body died, by law they had jurisdiction over it.
Yeah, they had jurisdiction.
And it being and I mean, at the same time, the feds didn't have jurisdiction over it because it was a single person shooter. That's local. That's state. That's
right.
It's not a federal matter. I guess being a president probably made it a federal matter, or they said so, or because who was the commissioner? The Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover. Like, fuck. He said.
Well, if they did have something
that
planned,
cross-dressing fuck,
they might have had conflicting stories. Of course, they're not going to have a separate hospital have, a different autopsy photos and things from what they wanted to have out.
I mean, everything's conflicting from the moment the shots were fired. So, 90 seconds after the shots were fired, the cops were in the school book depository. They were about at the second floor. So it took them 90 seconds to get to the second floor, right? So they think Lee Harvey Oswald got from the 6th floor to the second floor in 90 seconds. But it takes the cops 90 seconds to get from ground level to the second. Mm-hmm. But at the time they get there, Lee Harvey's already in there. So they said we got there within at least 90 seconds. So that he was already there. So that means he had to be there within 90 seconds. He could have been there at 80 seconds, 70 seconds. Nobody knows. But he was already there.
Yeah.
So cops rush in. Boom. They see him there eating a bag of fucking potato chips. No, he got a Pepsi in his hand. Calm as fuck. Even his coworkers, everybody there testified that he was calm. No, not breathing hard. No kind of crazy demeanor towards him or from him. And, the cops questioned everybody. Supposedly, they looked at Lee. This was the story that the Warren Commission gave. Supposedly, they looked at Lee Harvey, and the supervisor there was like, oh, he's an employee here. And they just kept going, like went past him and kept searching other places.
So he was in the building when they were doing the search?
But it's subplaning a reason on how they didn't catch him. If it was him and he was there, how you didn't catch him sooner, but you caught him 90 minutes later?
Right.
But the cops were there, and he was on the second floor in 90 seconds.
There's been a few people who have done the walk basically, and the time doesn't fucking add up.
They can't reach it in time.
Cannot.
I think they can reach it. I think one person reached it in time, but they're out of breath. It's not it's not sitting calm like everybody explained to him.
But who really truly knows the timeline? Because if he did run into that cop, he did it.
First of all,
how long would he been there?
His fingerprints wasn't found on the weapon, the rifle. They couldn't link him to the rifle. That rifle was purchased from a June issue of a magazine. His rifle that he actually purchased, records show, was from a February, from 2 months before, 2 months prior. So they're trying to frame him. You can see how they're trying to set him up with presenting a rifle that was purchased. It's almost like his, but it was purchased 2 months later. They couldn't get those purchase dates correct back then. You couldn't just forge that. It was just too hard. And so they couldn't link him to the rifle. They couldn't. He got out of the building. He walked away from the building. 2 blocks later, I think he was encountered by Officer Tippett again. And the story goes from the Warren Commission that he shot Tippett 3 or 4 times, and he fled the scene
to go on to a movie theater.
Well, actually, before that, after he killed Tippett, he got in a cab, and he took a cab to the movie. But if you read the official Warren Commission, before the cab, I think how he got 2 blocks or 2 miles away was by bus. Took a bus, got off the bus, started walking. Tippett seen him, killed a cop, got in a cab, went and went to a movie that he didn't pay for, just rushed in, and that's when he ended up getting caught, was in the middle of a movie. But a lot of shit.
Who said he rushed in?
The owners. You can find video of the owners saying, I remember that day, or the manager, I was working, and he just came in, a young fella ran past and didn't pay, and just off into the movie he went. I guess they didn't go and look for him or anything like that.
Fuck it.
Yeah. But, all right, so first of all.
But who knows if that's
from
true,
the Warren Commission's report, he woke up late for work, rushed out, left his money and his wedding ring. Right. If you left your money, how the fuck are you getting a cab, and how the fuck are you getting into a city bus after the shooting happened? And that both came from the Warren report. They also reported that he took the bus 2 miles away, got off. That's when he shot Tippett, got in a cab, went to the movie theater or whatever. Like,
how you gonna wake up late too if you knew you were gonna kill the president?
I had planned to kill the president, and I'm waking up late, and you forget
that doesn't
everything.
make sense. You don't think he wouldn't have been up all night fucking nervous as shit or something?
Yeah, he wouldn't have been. Somebody that's going to kill the president the next day is not going to sleep. And they know the president's getting
and then,
there.
Like, leisure into work.
They know the president's going to be there. They actually know his exact route that he's going to take, because several news channels and several other local TV channels printed his route several times, too, like leading up to the days he was coming, so everybody knew where he was going to be at. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly when his routes were like locally showed on TV or displayed. So that would give you another time frame. So if it was Harvey, he only had a few days, because they only been showing it for a few days where, you know, his route.
Yeah.
So how long were they showing his route on TV? That gives if it was Harvey, it gives him more time or less time to get ready for this. And when was his rifle ordered? If his rifle was ordered before he found out about the route, that means he didn't order the rifle with the intent
for this
to kill.
Specific event.
Bro, fuck the Warren Commission.
Yeah, when did he order that rifle? That's interesting.
Google
but
that shit.
Google
that shit real quick.
Who's really to say when he did order that rifle?
Official records, bro. .orgs don't get paid. .coms do. But yeah, so I mean, a lot of inconsistencies. There was even eyewitness testimonies that were inconsistent with the shooting of Officer Tippett. And there was even theories that Officer Tippett was a JFK body double. And that's who was used in the fake autopsy with the brains blown out.
You want to know what Wikipedia says about when he ordered his rifle?
When?
March 1963. So, April, May, June, July.
8 months before.
8 months before. Using the alias A. Hitler.
Oh, almost like some Adolf Hitler shit. Yeah, fucking right. That's bullshit.
Purchased by mail order, a 6.5 by 52 millimeter Carcano model.
So that's
infantry
8
rifle.
months before. He purchased it before he knew the president was going to come. So it definitely wasn't purchased with the intent to, I'm going to kill the president.
That's what I'm talking about.
Because they didn't know it 8 months in advance.
So I'm talking about, maybe someone said, hey, look,
and
the government said, hey, you need to order a rifle under this name. Have it months before, so it looks like, oh, you already had this fucking rifle.
That's definitely possible.
I'm telling you, man, they're all about the long play.
It's definitely possible. And also the photo with him, there's allegedly a picture with him holding the weapon that killed Kennedy in his backyard, in Lee Harvey Oswald's backyard. It's not an authentic picture. It's been proven fake through shadows, through body adjustments, and the way he's standing, and body measurements from him and the real
holding that shit, looking proud as fuck with it and stuff. I've seen that photo.
His wife says she don't remember taking the photo. His landlord that he was renting the building from, or that stayed there, that he was renting like a portion of the building from, never seen weapons.
Never seen him with it.
Yeah. Little interruption there.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Big interruption now.
I'm looking at malfunction.
But yeah, technical difficulties. Yeah. It could be the Kennedy. You never know. I mean, but just from the background of Kennedy. All right, the dude formed enemies. Got a lot of enemies.
The whole Kennedy family had a lot of enemies.
All right, so the dude formed a lot of enemies. Him, president in particular. His father had his ties to the mafia, the mob. His father was a bootlegger, alcohol runner back during the Prohibition when the alcohol was illegal and banned. He made a lot of money bootlegging and running alcohol, and I think he started putting money into like race car industries or race cars and stuff like that. So the dude was crooked from that aspect. They had mob ties already. He had, he went against the CIA. The CIA wanted to attack Bay of Pigs,
Right.
where the CIA wanted to attack Cuba because they had gathered intelligence that there was Russian nuclear weapons in Cuba, which there was, and they gathered that there was evidence that there was going to be attack, and they wanted Kennedy to pull the trigger. Kennedy shot down the idea. He shot down Operation Northwoods, because they were just fucking brutal ideas. And a certain hatred formed for Kennedy from the CIA. And then he went on he basically told the CIA, I'll destroy y'all, like all of y'all. He fired the director of CIA, which was Alan Dulles, which then ended up being one of the detectives on the Warren Commission that was appointed to solve this guy's murder. He ruined your career. You're the director of the CIA. He fired you. He ruined your career. And now you're elected to work on the team that's going to solve his death? Come on. From the get-go, this shit was not supposed to be correctly solved.
Why do you believe?
I think they probably just
why do
put
you
a bunch
believe
of
he was
idiots involved.
okay? If they were behind it, why do you believe he was assassinated?
If who was behind it?
Say the CIA or the government.
I don't know if the CIA was behind it. I don't think they was the ultimate force behind it, but I think there was a part in it. I think the ultimate forces behind it were Zionists, these elite Zionist bankers and these Jewish bankers that own the Federal Reserve. Exactly. I think they were the real funders of the assassination.
They orchestrated it.
I don't know if they orchestrated it, but they definitely gave the word that it needed to be done and paid whatever money needed to be paid, and other people orchestrated it and put the plays in motion. But I mean, same with Lincoln, same with
another president
Garfield,
who tried to get off the Federal Reserve.
Same with Lincoln, that he knew about central bank systems. He knew about they were charging 36% interest rates and shit like that. It was fucking ridiculous. It was debt, slavery by debt. And Lincoln knew about it.
He knew it.
And he went against it. He was murdered.
Yeah, because he tried to print his own money.
Andrew Jackson fought against them. He was attempted assassination on his life. Garfield was in office 100 days before he was assassinated.
And he wanted to try to do the same things, and he was assassinated.
And
it's a reoccurring theme here.
So I would say in November, in 1963, maybe April, Kennedy put acts. Any president could pass any law they want, any act they want. They can make it law. They have the power to do that. They have the executive power to do that. And he did that. He put Act 1110 in effect, which was a Silver Standard Act. And he printed $4 or $5 billion in silver notes. They were $2 and $5 denominations. It was $4 billion in $2 and $5 denominations, and it was all backed by silver. And he printed it from the U.S. government, and he put it in circulation, and he declared that the Federal Reserve will go bankrupt. And he was assassinated 6 months after that.
Lincoln literally did the exact same thing with greenbacks. He printed like 400 million.
So you see
to
the
help
history,
pay for the war
right?
effort. Yeah, you see it. I'm saying there's a repeating theme here.
Y'all gotta see the history of the reoccurring underlying theme that's going on here.
Yep.
And it's happening, and a lot of people don't know about it. So we're just here, level 1 woke. First step to waking up. We're here to help y'all wake up, help y'all see some things y'all haven't seen before. Get that third eye developing, higher levels of conscious.
Just kind of realize what's going on out there.
And stay away from tobacco. Tobacco's not good for you. Don't do what I do what I say. Stay away from tobacco, kids. Yeah, but a lot of shit don't add up. This is like Oswald. I think he was a patriot. I think personally he didn't have anything to do in the shooting of Kennedy or Officer Tippit. I don't think he had anything to do with either one of them. I think he was there because he was supposed to be there. He was playing along. I got to look into why he even moved to Texas in the first place, because that would probably give a little bit more information why he took a job there. Like, why were you already
Yeah, because he's
Texas?
from New Orleans.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I don't think he really had too much.
He came to Texas after Russia, though.
Yeah.
After he came.
I don't
came
think
back
he had
from
too much
Russia.
family. His dad
Got his
died.
wife.
His dad died of a heart attack, like when he was real young. He was in foster care when he was until he was like 12, and then moved to New Orleans or something with his mom. So it's not like he had a bunch of family ties. Maybe someone in Texas. I don't know. Just
I think his mother actually
Put
might
him
have
over
moved to Texas when he was in Russia, and that's why he ended
maybe
up
that's why he
moving.
ended up over there.
Don't quote me. It might be that.
It would make sense.
I think at some point in time he might have lived in Texas as a kid. Possibly, it's a possibility. It's a huge it's a high possibility that y'all need to look into.
Do the research. There's
But
tons of research out here.
especially
Make your
the
own.
witness testimony is all right. The bullets don't add up like we went over. The time frames of him being in certain places when he's supposed to be there, and they're like, oh, how could he have walked 6 blocks? Oh, he didn't. He took a cab. Well, how could he have took a cab if he left his money at home that day? Like, that's why he ran into the movie, because he ain't have money to pay to get in.
Yeah, the bullets don't make
So
sense.
that
He doesn't make
makes
sense. The shit that happened at the hospital doesn't make sense. The autopsy doesn't make sense.
The
witnesses doesn't make sense.
This is what I heard from what happened at the hospital by one of the operating doctors that were there. He said that they got a phone call that Kennedy's motorcade has been shot at, and that it's serious, and they're on their way there. And everybody was like, oh, every time we get calls like that, it's never serious. We didn't think nothing about it. He said by the time they got there, like, they rushed him into operating room 1. Vice President Lyndon, what's his name? Lyndon B. Johnson. He was in operating room 2. That was right across the hall. And he said they took the
No, that
president
was Connolly. It was Governor Connolly was the other one who got shot with him.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about who got shot. I'm just telling you where the vice president
the vice
and
president
Secret
okay,
Services were. They were in operating room 2 right across the hall.
Right.
So,
well, he had to know
the
by
details that I heard were one of the doctors he was 32, 34 at the time. He was thinking, because he knew all the surgical doctors were away, all the senior doctors were away. He was thinking on the way to the room, he's like, oh, I might be senior doctor going in here. So he was trying to brace himself for the situation. Got to the hallway, he sees Miss Kennedy sitting there, her pink outfit, bloody as fuck, crying. Not even crying. She just, like, matter of fact, I take that back. He didn't say she was crying. She was sitting there still, kind of in shock, but not too bad, he was saying. And he then proceeded into the room where he seen 2 other doctors were already in there. One had performed a tracheotomy or whatever it is, where you put an incision in your throat, try to put an air tube in there so you could help you breathe better.
Right.
That's why his bullet wound in the throat. They said all right, it's fucking crazy because you see the dude's head get blown off in the car. But medical's report said that he had a pulse and a heartbeat when he was brought in.
I don't believe that.
He was brought into the hospital, and that's why they performed a tracheotomy to get him to stabilize his breathing. And then shortly after, they put a incision in his neck to perform the tracheotomy that he flatlined. But the doctor that I'm talking about, his point of view, he said when he went in there, he was told to go stand at the end of the gurney by his head, like they were performing a seizure that's usually done. Like you establish airway. The first thing you do with a trauma person, you establish airway. Once you do that, you try to establish the bleeding, and then once you do that, you look for the wounds or the other wounds.
Yeah.
And then so they established the airway. He said he went back to the end of the gurney by his head. He said, y'all see this? His whole brain's hanging out of his body, or like his head already. He's like, a piece of it fell down onto the table. They're like, what are they doing trying to establish breathing to this guy? Maybe those guys were set there to fuck some shit up during operation to make the bullet wounds look like exit and entrance wounds instead of.
It could be, yeah. If you
to
look,
stage the way the patterns were coming in of the bullets.
Yeah, there's photos of the autopsy where, like, it doesn't. They have his neck up, So if you look at in the autopsy photos, there's bullet holes in his back, just maybe 5 or 6 inches below the base of his neck. So how the hell does that make sense?
Yeah, it's in his back, but it's coming out of his neck. Yeah. So he would have to be shot from, to hit that trajectory, you would have to be shot from like the bottom coming up. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah, and then with this, some of these photos, like, they look fake to me. That's just me though.
Some of them could be Officer Tippett. I'm telling you, somebody said that Officer Tippett could have been a body double used for some of those autopsy photos.
But that didn't really go as planned, so they're like, oh, he killed this police officer on the way. They had to have a reason for that body? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, but Lee Harvey seemed like a very well family guy, like a family man. He had 2 kids. He played with his kids in the neighborhood, played with other kids in the neighborhood. All the neighbors, like his employees, everybody thought good of him. Like, nobody really, just from his personality alone and his actions don't add up to the MO. Like, he don't fit the MO.
Yeah. It's real weird.
It is weird that, he was started there 6 weeks before the assassination.
Yeah, him and Tippett.
But the CIA could have planted him there. They could have, we need you working here right now.
I could see kind of a resemblance in him and Tippett.
And I think he realized that he might be getting framed for this, and that's why he left the school depository. He's like, oh shit, like, they put me here, they might be trying to frame me. Like, even his body demeanor in custody, he looked agitated. He looked like, I already know they're setting me up. Like, they're...
Yeah, not real happy to be there.
Yeah, it's fucked up. I've heard, like, I've seen video of his mom speaking, like, right after his funeral. The media was out there, and his mom was speaking, like, this old black and white shit from... And, I mean, you hear that everybody speak. I mean, they could be biased, speaking from his point of view and from knowing him and growing up with him, but there was theories of there being there was theories of being a Lee Oswald and a Harvey, and then a Harvey Oswald. And you start looking in the images, you might find a few images online. One of them's a little bit heavier, one of them's a little bit skinnier. But yeah,
there's so much to it that just is so ass backwards.
Yeah, and then after that, after he was assassinated, the Warren Commission, like we were talking about, was formed, which was a bunch of crooked fucks. It definitely had your boy Alan Dulles, that was director of CIA that Kennedy fired, was, like we were saying, was helped put in charge. And they came to the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, that he acted alone in the shooting of Kennedy, and that also Jack Ruby acted alone in the shooting of Lee Harvey.
Yeah, and then once they caught him, there's no video, there's no recording, there's no notes on his interrogation.
Yeah,
and he dies.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
And he dies 2 days after?
Yeah,
he was shot by Jack Ruby.
They interrogated him for 2 days. He was shot by Jack Ruby.
He was a nightclub owner. He had ties to the mafia.
Well, Jack Ruby started off like, he might have been like a muscle for the mob, some kind of muscle, some kind of low key start out guy. His sisters used to work in a bad part of the neighborhood. They lived in a bad part of the neighborhood when they were growing up, and they used to get harassed walking home from work. So he started walking them home from work every night, just to fuck whoever up, you know, that was talking shit, that was fucking with him. So he held his own, and one of his sisters eventually, I forgot what city it might have been, started a club or entertainment club or a restaurant, and brought him aboard. It didn't really do well at all, but he felt that he could really make it in this business in another state that was booming, and he thought, downtown Dallas is booming. I can make a living here. So it was then said that he went and he found a business partner in Dallas, and they opened this club, high. It's like a strip club, but
gentleman's club,
high level, like high,
like society, a high-end strip club,
high society strip club,
gentleman's club.
Had to wear a suit and tie to get in, stuff like that, legit dress codes, and he made good money doing that. But I believe the people that he went in business with on that club was the mob, because he definitely had known mob connections for sure. They were even looking at his call logs, like before he shot Oswald and after, or not after, excuse me, before after Kennedy and before Oswald, and he was multiple calls from like to the head boss mobs in New Orleans and Florida. Like he was calling around. Like,
So why do you think he shot Oswald?
the Warren Commission pledged that he was just a diehard Kennedy supporter, that you killed my president, I'm gonna do life in prison and kill you now.
Kill you.
He said he didn't expect him to die, but I mean, I don't know.
He shot the man in the stomach.
Yeah.
And if you look at the
dude.
the police officer who was walking him out and was kind of off to the side the whole time, like he knew that shit was coming.
Supposedly, there's a story went that I think there was this officer that I'm getting this information from that told the story that he said to Oswald before they walked out. He said, "Well, you know, if somebody's gonna shoot you, he was reaffirming something. How he say, if somebody's gonna shoot you, you're just gonna have to get down or something like."
Yeah.
And he said that Oswald was like, "Oh, you're being melodramatic. Like, I don't think nobody's gonna like." He was just brushing off like, "What are you talking about?" Like, he's like, "Well, you know, if somebody comes, you're going straight to the floor or something like that." Like, I don't know, it was weird, but look it up. You can find that conversation online. It's a weird
thing to say. You're gonna go to the floor. Maybe that was just kind of like, yeah, you're gonna get shot. Like your ass is gonna be on the floor. You think that's maybe how he meant that?
It was some skeptic shit, but it was definitely the cop that was saying it. There's video of him saying it. And you can see him, same dude that's in the picture that's handcuffed to Lee Harvey.
Right.
And I think like he was saying, I think he was a patsy. They superimposed his face on that picture. The dude holding the rifle and the revolver. That thing in his belt. But he was... And what'd you say? Didn't Lyndon Johnson? I think Hoover made a statement to Lyndon Johnson saying we got to convince the public that Lee Harvey Oswald did.
Yeah, this is that came out of the files that was released in 2017, which was 2 days after. Let me see here. I have it here. Yeah, he basically was telling him, like, we need to put out a thing, basically like a statement, so people believe that Oswald was he a one who killed him. Okay, yeah, 2 days after JFK's death, J. Edgar Hoover put out a memo that said, we need to put out a statement to convince the public Oswald is the real assassin. He put out a memo out to his people before email. He probably typed some shit up on his little typewriter and was like, we need to make this look legit.
So J. Edgar probably, if the mob had something to do with the hit, so did Hoover. Look him up for the simple fact that you could tell that he was being blackmailed for being a homo, and that's how he was denying the mob for so long that organized crime like this existed, like organized crime syndicates. Dude was a fucking douchebag.
Well, maybe they
crooked for years.
Had that blackmail on him or something for sure.
That would ruin his reputation. Think about it right now. He would have to step down. He would have all his, if he was, had sponsors or product, all that shit would be getting pulled right now. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Can't let that get out.
Especially
back then. Back then, you would have been crucified in those times for that shit. It was definitely
definitely frowned upon. Definitely frowned upon.
Definitely more than frowned upon.
For sure. And then, all the people who came forward was like, no, I don't believe that's what happened.
They dismissed Matt.
They dismissed him, and that's where
witness evidence.
That's where this whole conspiracy theory term came from, is they quoted it from that day.
There was officers
it's all conspiracy
that ran
theory.
Towards the grassy knoll when the shots were fired. There were, I believe multiple shots were fired at the same time. And the echoing of the buildings disguised it to make it maybe sound like only a few shots, but more were being fired somehow.
Well, that's the thing, too, is
the way that his head exploded, it looked like two bullets simultaneously hit him at the same time. And bow!
If you listen to a gunshot in the middle of, like, the streets, it's going to echo off all those buildings and sound like multiple gunshots. So maybe that's where people thought, it'll bounce off all the buildings.
So there should have been a count of
more
gunshots.
So you hear that pop, that
then.
crack.
There should have been a count of more gunshots then.
You would think.
a lot of stories are sketch from the beginning.
But how loud was that? Been people
It
clapping and
wasn't
cheering
loud
and
because
stuff?
if you look at Miss Kennedy's reaction, she didn't know he was shot until he was holding his neck, and then she looked at him like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that's why I'm questioning. I'm like, she didn't hear the shot just now, like.
Well, how far? Then maybe they even shot from further than the school book depository.
There was another building that lined up right behind.
Directly.
Yeah, behind it. And I think there were shots being fired from that building to another team of assassins. I think there was 2 teams of 3 people of assassins. Maybe a spotter and a shooter, and maybe a lookout on each squad. And both lookouts had walkie-talkies, and I think they shot at like secret time or the same time. And
There's a lot of weird hand gestures going on and supposedly signaling going on to,
yeah, for sure.
like, right before the moment that happened. So, I mean, there could have been a whole group of people there
If you watch the video
coordinating
on this,
it.
Yeah, if you watch the video on this, one of the CIA agents in the car behind Kennedy signaled for Kennedy's personal security to back away from the car.
Yep.
And he raised his hand 3 times like this, like why are you asking me to stand down? And he had to walk away. And then a few seconds later,
if you watch the video, Jackie Kennedy's Secret Service team comes up and he's right there. But where was Kennedy's at?
Why was he called away at that time?
And even then, you see even a few seconds that her Secret Service had time to run up there and is like trying to jump on the back of the car. But where was his?
They took Kennedy out. They're like, this dude's an enemy of the state.
He said, "Bro, you don't want to be right behind that car."
He's an enemy of the bankers.
That's exactly it.
It's got to be the bankers. They did everybody. They did Lincoln.
Yep. And that's the thing, is that they have enough power and control to do shit like that, to make it happen.
For sure.
Without getting their hands dirty, because they have more fucking money than you would ever know what to do with.
This person to pay that person to pay that person to pay that person.
And it never gets back to them.
It couldn't. The paper trail's too long.
Too long.
And when it done, at the end of the day, they don't like. I think it was like 1870 something when the Rothschild said he cares who not writes the law as long as I control the money of the country. So he's like, fuck your systems, fuck your laws, and fuck your governments, because I control the money you spend. So I'm above you in every way. Is what he's saying.
Yeah, and it's try to get off this. I'm blanking here. The Federal Reserve. See what happens. What happened to the 3 presidents before you that tried to do it?
Yeah, and why would he think at that time it would have been a good time to put $4 billion in circulation that was backed by silver, and the government was printing that money?
Yeah, that's ballsy.
I mean, what kind of effect would that have had anyways? Like, how
would it would do something.
How would you build interest on it without printing more money, though? Put more.
You
money
would eventually have to
in
print more, but yeah, you'd start at that $4 billion that he worked with and move on from there. It was an interest-free money. It was supposed to be for the people, though, because we're all in debt always, and we'll forever will be. And that's why they're allowed to get away with shit like this.
And what about the speech 7 days before he was assassinated or whatever about the secret society?
Yeah,
look it up. There's
a
watch
that
speech, and he talks about how they have their money and their politics involved in everything, as far as science and defense and intelligence agencies and space agencies, and they have paid for interest in everything that's going on around the world. So that's those bankers. There's a Rothschild bank. There's a central bank in every country in the world, except for North Korea and Cuba. I believe Iran don't have one yet. But
I think they're working on it.
Iran's close. If they don't have one already, they're very close. But those might be the only 3 for sure that don't have a central bank in the United States or in the world. And before 9/11 happened, there was a few more countries on that list, which was Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. None of those had a central bank. 9/11 hit, we went over there with our troops, took everything over, and now they all have central banks. So why do you think we went over there to establish banks, right? Why the fuck does the American want to establish central banks? They don't want to. They're being pulled into these wars by the bankers. These banks finance both sides of the war. They build up debt. And then just like anything you build up debt to, they basically own you because you're in debt to them.
And if you're in debt to them and they know that you have absolutely no way to pay them back, they're going to be like, okay, well, I think is they know, you know, there's no way to pay this shit back. They're like, we just need ultimate control of everything that goes on. Plain and simple. Just know, we know you're in debt, we own you, but we're going to call the shots to everything. How the world's going to be ran.
So they don't ever. So you think they don't ever plan on getting the money back because they're not going to be able to?
Right.
And who do they really care about getting the money back when
No.
they're the ones printing it and it's just paper?
They don't care about that interest. They don't care that we're trillions of dollars in debt to them. They already got more money than fucking God.
They
don't care.
They cause depressions and recessions.
What the real value to them, I believe, is being able to call the shots in every fucking country.
You think they get off
to
on
fucking,
just being the boss?
It's not just like getting off. It's knowing that they literally run the world. And that whatever they want to happen in the world, they can make it happen. Even if you don't believe in...
That gets them off? Or what's their motive for doing that? What's their pleasure of doing that is what I'm saying.
To just imagine...
They're not doing it just
imagine
to do it.
Knowing,
we got nothing else to do.
Just imagine knowing that you run and you own every fucking thing.
Though. I'm going to need a reason, though. Like, what's the purpose?
The purpose, global domination, man. Knowing that you own literally the entire world. You got more money than fucking anything.
Global domination. What's the next move? Is I guess what I'm trying to say. Because what are they trying to reach global domination status for?
Maybe never
What's their
ever
plan for
having
doing this?
I have no idea. It's not just like one little family of people. It's a big group of people.
It's multiple families.
It's multiple families.
It's called the Committee of 300. Look it up.
That's my
300 is
that's my opinion.
What these bankers that run the world.
It's my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they would have been, if they wanted to ask, they wanted their interest back right now. They know that we can't pay that back. They know it's not going to ever happen. So like,
$22 trillion in debt.
Let us call the shots in your country, and we're good.
No, we could pay them back for sure. If they stop giving taxes back to the American workers for like 3 years, we could pay off that $22 trillion debt.
Do you not want your taxes back?
I'm just saying, I don't file taxes. I'm not involved in all that stuff.
Well,
I'm not an employee of America. I'm a natural.
Okay.
I'm a natural flesh and blood person.
Yeah.
I'm not a corporate corpse.
Even if you don't believe in the shit that happened to JFK, if it was just a fucking madman.
Just don't believe the Warren Commission. Look that shit up. It's fucking bullshit. Magic bullet theory's bullshit. Them finding the bullet on the gurney is bullshit. Like, anybody with any sense could read this and be like, how the fuck, like, none of this adds up.
Yeah.
And how did they pass that off to the public? Like we said, they already been fucking put in that inception in their mind of that idea of he's guilty the whole 6 months they're doing this investigation, this report. And then when they finally put it out, of course everybody already thinks he's guilty. That's all we've been hearing for the past 6 months. Nobody's going to argue that. Not the masses anyways.
Right.
Maybe 30% might argue, but that's about it.
They're not going to. People don't. They know that the shit happens and it goes on. They just don't want to spend their time and energy on doing anything about it, really.
And then people that were too close don't want to get killed. If I'm not mistaken, if you look this up, there was a certain amount of people surrounding that case that coincidentally ended up dying within a few years after that happened. Like certain witnesses, certain maybe
just like anything, like 9/11 and everything else. That's a big thing that happens.
I think they either really rigged that video up, or I think that Mandela effect might be real, because I remember Brain going out the back of his head and hitting the trunk. And I remember his wife reaching over the trunk.
I do too.
For a piece
we were
of brain.
Talking about that yesterday.
The video that's online now shows Brain coming out the front of his head, the front side, right side of his head, and it shows his wife reaching for her Secret Service agent. It doesn't show.
It has her like crawling on the back of the head like that.
Or they might fucked up that that footage. They might have did some.
I
real
remember
shit with
seeing
that
it too.
footage.
I remember seeing that footage, and now I can't find it anywhere.
So now that we know that footage is basically fucked with, that means we know there's a conspiracy. If they fuck with the footage, that means they're hiding something right there. The single bullet theory is crazy. Just it went through a bunch of people and
Yeah.
7 wounds, 2 fractures, came out and just how did it even end up in his gurney though? Like
Yeah, so that's the thing too, is that in the hospital they found a perfectly intact bullet on Connolly's gurney.
the governor, yeah.
A perfectly intact bullet that went through all these different surfaces. You've seen a bullet that's been shot at literally anything, it squishes up. It just
On impact,
it crumples.
Yeah, on impact, it's not gonna
And
stay,
or
It's
fragments.
not gonna stay. Yeah.
For the most part, it just squishes down. It just after it hits so much stuff.
Maybe they were just. Maybe that was an operation.
Maybe they're really that fucking
Maybe that
dumb.
was an MK Ultra mind control operation. Like, let's see if we can prevent the stupidest story that doesn't add up, but still convince them that this is what happened. And if we do convince them, that means we run the American public. We can convince them anything now at this point.
That's what I'm saying. This event has so much to do with cover-ups and false flags and things like that. It just this like birthed it. They got away with this, and now from this date on, it's like, oh,
I don't know, but like there's a history and there's a reoccurrence of like we were saying with the presidents that went against these central banks being assassinated or attempt assassinations on them, on their lives.
right.
And Kennedy falls in that category, but there's hasn't been nobody since Kennedy either. I mean, but look at Ron Paul. He ran his whole campaign and the Fed and the Federal Reserve. He wanted to go back to a gold or silver standard. Nobody was thinking about
Whoever
that in
tries
2008 or 2012 when he ran.
Whoever tries that's got some balls on him, and if
He
you
did.
fucking get away
He
with that
couldn't be.
shit,
That was the dude that couldn't be sold out. He was never took
You
any
can-
bribes. He was that politician that never like voted for tax breaks for big companies. Always voted for tax breaks for the small guys and shit. Like he was that dude, and he was silenced by the media when he was running that. And the Fed was his
Yeah.
slogan. Look into that,
Because,
Ron Paul and the Fed.
you know,
He
every
was trying to
media-
end the Federal
every
Reserve.
media company and outlet is owned just by like five different things. They can put out whatever they want.
I don't
You've
know
seen
how
the-
he didn't get off on this campaign though. That was brilliant. And the Fed, what? This guy had a campaign and the Federal Reserve. Good thing he didn't get assassinated. Like
What I'm
he
saying
didn't have
is,
no power to change anything at the time.
you got some balls trying that shit. You couldn't
He
fucking
should have
get
waited
me
before
ever
he
to,
got elected and then tried to say some shit like that.
and I say that because I believe the pretty much entire reason, forget Northwoods and all that shit. I believe he was killed solely because he wanted to get off the Federal Reserve. That's my opinion.
Kennedy.
Kennedy was assassinated because he wanted to fucking get off that shit.
And all right, so it's easy for him to be assassinated if somebody wants you dead, and then if somebody says I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna pay this, I'm gonna have you knocked off, and then you already have enemies that are willing to do this. They don't want to kill you, but they will if the price is right, I guess.
Price is
per se.
right.
So he already fired the director of CIA, ruined his career, Alan Dulles, Alan Walsh Dulles, which was head of the MK Ultra mind control programs and stuff like that, right? Fired this dude. This dude already had it out for him. The mob had it out for him. His brother was campaigning and smashing on organized crime syndicates and mob families and just running them out and locking them up. Like, they were supposed to, I guess they might have had some ties and some connections to the mob they were supposed to honor when they got in, and supposedly they didn't honor none of that. Could have been that way.
Yeah, the mafia
So
paid for
the
his
bank,
campaign.
All the banks got to do is say, "Hey, we want it done," and I'm pretty sure you can get the right people to get it done. And if you look at all the add all the evidence up and you look at it thoroughly, you can tell the Warren Commission is not true. At the very least, if you get anything from the Warren Commission, that it's not true, and that was published as true evidence on what we're supposed to believe happened. So look at
I
that.
would believe the Warren Commission.
That shit definitely doesn't add up.
You're basically, You're looking at the evidence of the people who did it. They're presenting you the evidence that it was someone else. The people who did it are the ones investigating. That's how I look at it.
I mean, it was crazy. One of the doctors was saying that when he was pronounced dead, that Miss Kennedy, she said that she kept walking in and out of the room, and they kept like chauffeuring her out. But once he was pronounced dead, she came in, and she took her wedding ring off and put it on him, and took his wedding ring off and put it on her. And which was a weird story because supposedly that same thing happened with Lee Harvey Oswald and his wife when she went and checked the body out. She did the same thing when it was in the morgue. But all right, so and then Miss Kennedy, I guess supposedly kissed one of his foot, like his feet that was sticking out from under the blanket. She kissed his foot, and I don't know, bro. That's just crazy. Like they said, she wasn't really hysterical. She wasn't crying. Like she was already. I guess she had already knew, like, you know,
he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably had a 10-minute ride to the hospital.
Supposedly, and if you can look this up because I heard this, and I think it's probably true. She handed one of the doctors a piece of his brain. So if the doctor testifies that she handed me a piece of Kennedy's brain, that means she was back there reaching for a piece of brain, like we seen on the original film.
You don't think it could have been a piece off of her clothes, or just
it
that?
Could have been
because she was bloody
for sure. Her whole side of that car was all bloody. There wasn't too much blood on his side, and when he leaned towards her, and it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she had brains in her lap.
Yeah.
That was his whole head exploded. Like it probably didn't look real. Like
you seen the photo? Shit. You seen the photo too of
a lot of the autopsy photos look fake.
Lyndon B. Johnson being sworn in on the Air Force One, and just how weird that photo is, and all the people in it,
and going
when he's sitting
Washington
there, you know, doing
with
his
the body in the other room.
And then Jackie Kennedy is just kind of sitting there with a blank stare, and like.
So before the story was that the body was fixed and cut up inside the plane, Air Force One going to Washington D.C. It was cut up and the wounds were made to look different. Now with this Mandela effect that we done switched into, the stories now are saying that they cut a trinket or whatever in his neck to get him to breathe. That was all at the hospital. Why would you cut? I guess they wanted to cut into a wound that was already there. Like that made no sense. I'm not a doctor, but you're cutting in a dude that's into a wound that you don't know what damage is already done. I know you're just trying to establish breathing, but still,
right?
Common sense got to come in at some time.
It's just You would think. What do you think? What's your opinion on the whole thing? What do you think the whole reason was for?
Oh,
I said my piece.
Man, he's got a lot of enemies.
So you think it just boiled down to that?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. You could probably get a story for each one, but if I had to pick an enemy for him, I think nothing. I gotta look into this Act 1110. But if I know he put $4 billion in circulation, $2 and $5 notes denominations, and backed by silver, but if that is an official story and it was to help give the rights back to the people, which the people loved him, he was that beloved. You know, people loved him. He was the first president of that time that was actually born in this century in the 1900s. So. He was a little younger, he was charismatic, and he probably thought he can go against those big bankers. He probably thought he had the power now. There's people behind him. He thought that might help him get reelected. Tax breaks or whatever these cuts are going to bring from these putting this money into circulation. And that also means the bankers wouldn't have been able to manipulate the market as much as they wanted through inflation and, deflation and controlling the money. They wouldn't have been able to manipulate the market as they wanted to with his own money in circulation. And people had something that was backed by actual silver and not by just a piece of paper that's not backed by anything right now, which all the money we use today is
not backed by shit.
It's just a piece of paper. It's a non-legal tender.
So you kind of think it boils down to being bankers and the Federal Reserve?
I think
To me, that's what makes sense.
I mean, somebody had to give the hit from the Fed. Somebody had to maybe talk to somebody in the CIA. Maybe Alan Dulles was the first person they talked to because he's a crooked fuck already from the MK Ultra programs. Like, dude's already a sick fuck. And then your whole career is ruined when you're fired by JFK and you're the director of CIA and Kennedy fires you. And because he shut down his Northwoods and his Bay of Pigs invasion and stuff like that. Which
Right.
Northwoods was some crazy operation where the CIA wanted to do, there was several false flags propagandas that they wanted techniques they wanted to run, and Kennedy shut them all down. And a couple of them were like, one of them they wanted to get a airliner filled
with
with
like college
people,
students and shit.
and
I think it was college students.
yeah, they wanted to blow an airliner up and blame it
on Cuba.
on Cuba to get us to invade. They wanted to sink
Sound familiar?
a Navy ship off the coast, an American military ship off the coast of Cuba. They wanted to sink it and blame it on Cuba. There was another one where they wanted to get Russian planes and paint them like Cuban symbols and like attack
Attacking like an American city or something.
yeah.
And
They was trying to run a drone into. They were trying to blow up a drone and blame it on Cuba, like a drone plane.
Yeah.
They had drones back then, so it was a bunch of crazy shit. And Kennedy shut all of them down. He didn't want to go to war with Cuba. They wanted him to go to war with Cuba, but who's they? The bankers always want you to go to war. They're the only ones that profit from war.
and
We go in debt. We spend trillions and trillions. We're in debt, and we're borrowing money from the Federal Reserve to pay off war costs. We've been in war since 2001. There's not been one day since 2001, September 11, 2001, that we haven't been in war. This country's been in war since then.
And we were at war with places that did not at the time have central banking. That were not part of this whole connected.
And I'm telling you, once they get a stronghold and there's a bank almost in every place that they can have a bank, which is right now, you're not going to get a central bank in Cuba, and you're not going to get one in North Korea. So the only thing next to do is have another
go to war.
There's going to be a World War III, and that's the only thing left there is to do.
War is the only way to fucking strong arm your way into a country
all
and
those
put your
Eastern
fucking bank in there.
countries in the Middle East are already having civil wars and shit like that for the past 10 years now. They've been rioting and having civil wars and protests. So the only thing that's left over is World War III.
And
which the invasion of Cuba, that's what it was supposed to be. That was supposed to pop off World War III for these bankers.
World War III,
and
we'll have no winner.
Kennedy shut it down. Bay of Pigs. He said no, we're not invading. He also went behind the CIA and behind the FBI and started his own communication directly with Fidel, and wanted to have meetings to talk without the CIA and the FBI on what they could do about the crisis or whatever. And the CIA found out about that. They didn't like that shit, of course. So they could have had a hand in this hit. They could have been the guys that orchestrated it, put it together. Yeah.
The CIA got orders from even higher up than them, and they carried it out. All you got to do is just ask the CIA and be like, make this happen, and they'll make it fucking happen.
Yeah, look what
you
the
got
shit
the most,
they were into.
You got the most fucking, like MK Ultra, even just that.
Artichoke and shit. Like
all the shit that they hid for fucking years. Who says they can't hide other shit, you know? Why couldn't they hide the fucking...
Oh, they're still hiding the Kennedy shit. We're going to get it.
You know,
we all know that they had a part in assassinating Martin Luther King.
Yep.
There was a civil trial, I think in 94 or 97. His family won a settlement from from the government, American government, that the government did have involvement in it, some percentage of involvement in it. But that's a whole nother episode on that one. Probably a little bit more info on who really did it, and
yeah,
because that's been declassified. It just wasn't a heavily media covered trial, because you can imagine and assume why they wouldn't want it to be. But
look into the JFK thing, because I believe it's a real kind of a big day that I think kicked off a lot of chain events for other things that have been going on for the past 50 years. And just kind of read some documents and look into it, because there is some shit in there that, you know, you're not going to see on TV, or you're not going to be told about. You kind of got to read and find out about it. It's
do your own research.
It's not
on
mainstream. It's not mainstream
look
knowledge.
at the video and look how the footage changes. You can keep doing deep research and find like raw footage that hasn't really been fucked with,
and make your own conclusion about it,
or other films. But look at it and you can tell the film's been tampered with in certain ways. The information's out there. The bullet theories don't add up. The Oswald being approached by the cops and then let go, and then supposedly 5-10 minutes later, 40 minutes later, whatever, he kills Officer Tippett. Then he's arrested in a movie theater. A lot of stuff is strange. He didn't have the mannerism or the actions of somebody that was figuring out that, like, oh, I'm gonna kill the president today or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the witness testimony on ground level around the grassy knoll, that around the depository, there was a gentleman and his wife, that did say that they seen 2 shooters from the depository, one on each end. And there was witnesses saying that they seen a shooter from behind the grassy knoll. They seen a puff of smoke coming over there when a shot was fired. And
there's tons of stuff to look at.
We know that one guy was grazed in the face by a fragment, and that car was shot at least 7 times. Probably.
I think so.
I don't think there was the 3 bullet theory. I think there had to be more.
There's
than
the theory that the
a lot of
bullshit that
5.
the driver shot him.
Yeah.
There's theory that the car behind them, one of the guys in the back of that car, shot him. I mean, there's theory after theory after theory after theory.
And even when you find the video of the driver shooting him, it looks like the driver shooting him. Look it up.
Yeah.
And the driver shoots him in the video.
I've looked at that.
So it just proves that the video could be tampered with. Whether if you believe that to be fake, then the video been tampered with. So you know they can tamper with it and make it look real.
Well, if you know what to look for.
Yeah, if you know, well, they explain it to you, and you see the hand go up.
You see,
what I saw was totally different from other videos. So it's
exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's hard to find legitimate stuff, because I saw one where the video pointed out his hands, both hands on the steering wheel, and what looks like would be a gun is the.
It was like the dude's forehead.
Was
it was
the
shiny,
doors?
shiny.
The guy's hair.
It was this. Nah, he was bald headed. Or it might have been.
It was his hair shining.
I know
the sun was shining right on top of his head. Yeah.
Which that was inconsistent.
Come on, that was a sunny ass day.
But it was inconsistent with his body movement, because his body moved, but that spot stayed lit right there at the same time until.
You buy that driver story?
I'm not buying the driver story. I'm buying that proves that the video can be tampered with and made look like something else. Because the video that I seen might not have been the video that you seen, and it doesn't sound like it is. Because the video I seen, you can see him turn back, arm goes straight, arm. It looks like probably you can even see the gun, like the whole gun in his hand. I don't know if there's a pop, like if the shot's fired or not, but definitely it was the guy that wrote that Behold the Pale Horse book, William Cooper. He had he was doing a lecture where he showed raw video of like the original Zapruder film before, I guess, it was tampered with in any kind of way. And in that footage, it kind of looked like the limo driver did do it, and then he sent that footage to experts in Japan to analyze, and he said they ran it on their news over there as the limousine driver killed Kennedy.
Really?
So that might be common knowledge in Japan. They might to this day think the limo driver killed him. But it was a bizarre story, because it spoke about how it was. They were like, then how come they didn't hear the shots in the car? Of course, everybody around them in the car would have heard the shots. Then they were saying it was like an air powered rifle or an air powered pistol, like a CO2 gun or something, that was silenced in some type of way, but it was shot out like exploding darts that had shellfish toxins on it.
So they think he was
well,
poisoned.
they wanted to, if the shot didn't kill him, the toxins would finish him off.
Right.
And that explains the different autopsy photos. That explains one of his autopsies his brain's hanging out his photo, and then the other one they were saying his brain was more intact than that, and that could have been Officer Tippett's brain. They switched it. They didn't want the trace of the poison, the shellfish poison.
Right.
But it came, and this was all presented also by William Cooper. But it came to be public record that there was a hearing where the CIA was held accountable for, and they did bring that gun that was identified by William Cooper that shot. It was in the hearing. They did say yes, it did exist, and yes, it could shoot toxins like poisonous toxin darts like shellfish or whatever. Like,
right.
So he was establishing proof of that, and then I guess tying that into his theory of the driver shooting, and maybe they could have did that. But to me, it looks like his fucking head blows up, man. There's no way around that. How do you get one clean shot? Look at his autopsy poster or pictures. One clean shot through the back, one clean exit wound, and then all of a sudden your head's exploding from one more shot. Who? That was like some shit from the movies. Whose fucking head explodes like that?
I mean, that's the movies. I mean, I don't know in real life. I haven't seen anyone's head fucking get blown up like that in real life.
That's exactly what it looked like. Like his shit was blown up. Like
it's allegedly a high
his doctor
powered
put some
rifle.
shit up his nose, and they just turned a button and boom, blew his head up.
I mean, yeah, the angle doesn't make sense.
They
to
put
me
a
for
kill
that.
pill in his nose when he was asleep.
Yeah, the angle
On his
doesn't make
dentist
sense.
visit, they put a kill pill in his nose and
Yeah.
triggered it because these snipers kept missing and shooting everybody else in the limo and spectators. But nah, more serious note. But it's definitely something to research. We're only talking about it because these files and these documents will be public domain soon. They will be released and they will be recovered through Freedom of Information Act. And we might go in more depth about it. We'll probably have to because there's going to be a lot more information released. We're just pointing out the inconsistencies and the similarities of how the Warren Commission they want to cancel out certain witnesses' testimonies and say, no, this is not what happened. And a lot of testimony, there was more testimony, the only testimony they kept was testimony that corroborated the story that they wanted to tell.
Absolutely.
Which was less testimony than corroborated the real story. The real story, there was like 70% of the people saying one thing. They only went with the 30% of the people because that 30% was saying what they wanted them to say. But the truth is
threatening them and stuff.
The truth is something else happened. There was definitely two teams of shooters. I'm thinking probably by the grassy knoll and probably not even from the school book depository. Maybe from that building directly behind it.
Be curious to see that in real life, just that location, and kind of, make your own assumption.
Take your own shots.
Take your own. Just to see the angles, see if that looks.
Yeah, but
looks
all
right
the films
to you,
that we got on it right now have been doctored up in so many different ways. Like, you'd probably have to go to the library and like research original film and maybe be able to find on the Kennedy assassination. And like Wikipedia, they lie. Don't listen to these fucks. They're big liars.
This is an important one here.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because if they can silence your president, they can silence anybody. And you notice that no other president. This act, what's crazy about the act that he put in order for us to print our own money is still active.
Just no one's doing it.
We can use it, but yeah, no one's choosing to
get their fucking headshot too.
Exactly. Nobody wants to get taken out. That was an example right there.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
absolutely.
That was the ultimate example, and I don't think nobody's going to try it again for a while until people forget about it. And then here comes, 100 years later, they're going to have to do it again, just like they did 100 years ago, or 80 years ago before that. And
Seems like a pattern. About every 100 years, they'll have some guy who
taking people
gets
out
in and tries it, and you have to take him out. It's sad.
Yeah, but it makes you think, what are these bankers, like, legit? Like, what's their ultimate goal, though? Like, what do they keep? They're killing people over this shit to have dominance, to be able to print money and print money. Like, you got more money than anybody in the world. Well, you can't buy nothing else. What is you doing now with it?
To
Like,
be able to own the entire
they
world.
do.
Not
They
just,
been had that. So
not,
what's the point?
not some of these
though?
countries that you named off. We've talked about that.
That's little too. I'm pretty sure they're not worried.
Maybe
about
it is an
Cuba.
ego thing. Maybe it is like we need every last
You
little
don't think
piece
these
of
fuckers
fucking land.
aren't aliens from another fucking like some reptilians and just trying to run our shit and enslave all of us?
They supposedly do have a different blood type than anyone else on the planet.
Who?
The Rothschilds and shit.
The Rothschilds or the Rockefellers?
All these bankers.
All the
Rockefellers.
bankers?
I think.
You know that they be fucking. They also be shooting up IVs of like teenagers' blood, like young blood, because they think it's gonna like somehow it's gonna give them not immortality, but they did scientists did this experiment where they were injecting blood from an old rat into a younger rat. And then when they did it, they observed the younger rat becoming less mobile and less happy and active.
And then they did the opposite, right?
And they noticed the old ones being more rejuvenated.
There may be something to that, brother.
No,
I think they're...
Look it up. I forgot his name, but there's a billionaire in America that dopes up on teenagers' bloods and shit. He buys blood.
Bro, they're into weird shit. They're into weird ass shit. They're into weird fucking
like
sexual
Fountain of Youth
shit.
or something. He thinks it's helping him being younger or maintain.
They're vampire reptilians.
Possibly. That's their excuse. Like, oh, it's making me younger. No, you're a fucking vampire reptilian, you fuck.
Yeah.
Are you the Anunnakis or who are you?
Hey, they could be.
I mean, if you think about it, these Rothschilds, these older Lord Rothschild, this guy looks like a fucking Anunnaki alien.
That whole family looks like a bunch of they all sleep together. They all look fucking like hillbillies.
They're
rich
inbred for
hillbillies,
sure.
like inbred fucking
That's
weird.
why they got a weird bloodline because they're maintaining their own bloodline.
Yeah, they're keeping that bloodline. I think that's been said is that they keep it in the fucking family.
They keep it in the family for real. Yeah, that's not cool. Ever.
I mean, I think they're in a bunch of weird shit. You got that kind of money, you've probably done everything.
But aren't you supposed to be? Ain't there diseases that come from that, like deformations from inbred and breeding and shit like that? Like
busted ass.
I believe
face.
Wasn't like King Tut an inbred and he had like diabetes and a bunch of crazy.
He had a weird shit. He had a weird shaped head. He had a big old pot belly.
Yeah,
he fucking had like a short leg and shit.
Scoliosis or some shit. He had a bunch of diagnoses.
Which they thought, was from inbreeding and shit.
Yeah. So inbreeding is not the way, kids. Don't
Clearly.
Stop looking at your sister like that, you fucking weirdos.
Yeah. Well, I guess that wraps it up on JFK, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you can never really wrap it up, but
that wraps up this episode.
That's all we got to give y'all.
That's all we got.
That's all we got.
Go look into it.
So,
Go wake up.
Do your own research. Wake up. Open a third eye.
Something like that.
First step to waking up. And we'll be back. Fuck y'all.